The field stretched wide and endless, glowing under the pale light of the alien sun. Giant machines rolled slowly through the crops, their long blades turning, cutting, chewing the tall stalks with cold precision. They looked like monsters from an old nightmare. Hungry and unstoppable, the ground shook with every pass, the sound a sharp grinding that echoed across the valley. Among the tall crops a small figure stumbled. Her skin was pale with a faint shimmer, her clothes torn and dusty. She was a young alien girl no older than 8. Her feet sank into the dirt as she tried to run, but she was weak. Her breaths came fast, sharp, filled with fear. Behind her the machines drew closer, the spinning blades catching the light like cruel teeth. She turned her head, eyes wide with terror. Her family had been with her only moments ago. They had walked her into the field, told her to wait. She thought they would come back. She thought they loved her, but then they turned away. Their backs stiff, their voices low. They left her there, abandoned in front of the moving harvesters. As if she was nothing, the girl shouted for them, her voice cracking. "Please, wait, don't leave me," she cried. Her words carried across the field, but her family did not stop. They did not look back. They walked faster, vanishing into the distance. Her legs gave way and she dropped to her knees. The sound of the blades grew louder, closer. Fear wrapped around her chest like a chain. She tried to stand again, but her knees shook. Her small hands pressed into the dirt. Her eyes burned with tears. The air was filled with the smell of oil and metal as the harvester loomed behind her. Each second brought the edge of the machine nearer. Not far away, another figure worked. It was a human, broad-shouldered and covered in dust from long hours in the fields. His name was Aaron. He had been fixing an old irrigation pipe when he heard the faint sound. At first it was lost under the rumble of the machines, but then he caught it again, a child's voice. Desperate and afraid, he lifted his head and scanned the horizon. Through the bending crops he saw her, small, helpless. Standing in the path of the machine, his heart jolted. For a moment he thought he was imagining it. But then he saw the shimmer of her skin, the tears on her face. The harvester was seconds away from reaching her. The girl was frozen, too weak to move. Aaron dropped his tools and ran, his boots pounded the dirt. His lungs burned as he pushed through the tall stalks. He shouted, but the girl could not hear him. Her small body shook with fear. The grinding roar of the blades drowned out everything else. The machine towered now, its shadow falling across her. The sharp metal edge spun, cutting closer and closer. The girl lifted her hands in a weak shield, her lips trembling. She whispered something, maybe a prayer, maybe a final plea. Her family had left her to die, but she did not want to die. Aaron's heart thundered in his chest. He ran faster, pushing his legs beyond their limit. The crops whipped against his arms and face, but he did not slow. His eyes locked on the girl. He could see the dirt on her cheeks. The way she trembled, he knew he had only moments. The harvester did not stop. It did not see. It did not care. The girl's small cry was swallowed by the grinding roar. One more step and the machine would end her. Then through the haze of fear, she saw him. A tall figure breaking through the stalks, arms outstretched. His voice cut through the noise for the first time. "Hold on!" he shouted. She blinked, confused, not understanding why anyone would come for her. The machine's blade cut the air with a scream. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for pain. At that same instant, Aaron lunged, his arms wrapped around her tiny body. He pulled her from the ground with a surge of strength. The harvester's blade sliced through the space where she had been only a second earlier. He fell to the dirt with her in his arms, rolling away from the path of the machine. Dust filled the air, choking, blinding. The sound of the harvester rumbled past. Missing them by inches, the girl clutched his shirt, shaking so hard she could barely breathe. Aaron held her tight, shielding her with his body until the machine passed. His heart raced, sweat pouring down his face. Slowly, he lifted his head. Checking she was safe, her wide eyes met his, filled with fear, confusion, and something else. "Hope," he whispered. "You're safe now." His voice was gentle, steady. The girl's lips trembled as she tried to speak, but no words came. She could only cling to him, holding on as if he was the last solid thing in a world that had just tried to crush her. Far away, her family disappeared into the distance, never turning back, never knowing that someone else had chosen to see her, chosen to save her. The field fell silent except for the fading roar of machines. In that silence, a fragile bond was born, between a human who could not look away and an abandoned girl who had been left for dead. The girl's small body trembled in Aaron's arms. Her thin fingers clung to his shirt as if letting go meant death. Dust from the harvester still floated in the air. Stinging his eyes, his chest heaved with every breath. He looked down at her face, pale and streaked with tears. Her wide eyes stared at him with a mix of fear and disbelief. Aaron gently pulled her away from his chest so he could see her better. "You're safe now," he said again. His voice calm, steady. His words seemed strange to her. Her lips parted, but no sound came. It was as if she had forgotten how to speak. Her throat made a small sound, half sob, half gasp. He stood slowly, lifting her into his arms as if she weighed nothing. The ground shook as another harvester rolled by in the distance, but they were safe for now. Aaron carried her to the edge of the field where an old water barrel and broken fence gave some shelter. He set her down gently on a flat stone. Kneeling beside her, the girl hugged her knees. Staring at the dirt, her whole body shook as though the cold had sunk deep into her bones. Aaron removed his jacket and wrapped it around her small shoulders. The fabric swallowed her thin frame, but she pulled it close. Her breathing slowed. Though her tears kept falling, "Why were you out there?" Aaron asked softly, but she only lowered her head. The silence between them felt heavy, broken only by the hum of machines far away. He wanted to press her to demand answers, but he could see she was fragile, like glass ready to crack. Aaron reached into his pack and pulled out a small canteen. He unscrewed the lid and held it toward her. At first, she stared at it, suspicious, as though it might be another trap. But when he nodded, she slowly reached out. Her hand shook as she lifted it to her lips. She drank greedily, coughing halfway, spilling water down her chin. "Easy," Aaron said, taking it back gently. "There's more if you need." She nodded weakly. Her voice still locked away. He rummaged again and found a small ration bar, breaking it in half before handing her the piece. The smell made her hesitate, but hunger was stronger. She nibbled, then chewed faster like someone who had not eaten in days. Aaron watched quietly, his jaw tight. Whoever left her had not cared if she lived or died. His mind burned with questions, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had seen cruelty before, but abandoning a child in front of machines was beyond anything he could understand. After a while, the girl's breathing steadied. Her eyes lifted slowly to his. Her voice came out small, fragile. "Why? Why did you help me?" The words trembled as though she was afraid of the answer. Aaron leaned closer, his voice gentle. "Because no one deserves to be left behind." Her lips quivered. Her eyes glistened with fresh tears. She hugged herself tighter. "My family. They said I was weak," she whispered. "They didn't want me anymore." The words cut deep into Aaron's chest. He clenched his fists, anger flashing in his eyes. How could anyone call a child a burden? Let alone leave her to die, he wanted to shout, to curse the people who had abandoned her, but he kept his voice steady for her sake. "They were wrong," he said firmly. "You are alive, and that means you matter." She blinked at him, as though the idea itself was strange. He gave her a small smile, trying to ease the weight pressing down on her heart. The girl's tears slowed, but she did not smile back. Instead, she whispered, "I thought no one would see me. I thought I would just disappear." Her voice cracked. Aaron's chest tightened. He reached out carefully and placed a hand on her shoulder. She flinched at first, then let herself lean into the warmth. "You're not disappearing," he said. "Not while I'm here." For the first time, her eyes softened, a faint flicker of trust glowing through the fear. She sniffed and nodded. Clutching his jacket tighter, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the valley. The harvesters continued their endless work, blind to the small life they almost took. Aaron stood and looked toward the settlement far beyond the fields. Somewhere out there were the ones who had abandoned her. Perhaps they thought she was gone already. Perhaps they didn't care. Aaron felt the weight of choice settle on him. He could take her back and leave her to whatever fate awaited her. Or he could do something different. He looked down at the girl, fragile but still breathing, still alive. Her eyes followed his every move now. Afraid he might walk away too, he crouched again and met her gaze. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated as if the question itself was dangerous. Finally she whispered, "Lyra." Her voice shook. But she said it. Aaron nodded, repeating it softly. "Lyra," as if anchoring her to the world. The girl stared at him, then whispered, "Will you leave me too?" Her words struck him like a blade. He shook his head firmly. "No," he said. "I won't leave you." The promise was simple, but to her it was everything. The girl's shoulders eased. A small sigh escaping her lips, she leaned against him, exhaustion pulling her down. Her eyelids fluttered. Her body sagged as sleep finally claimed her. Aaron adjusted his jacket around her, keeping her warm as the night wind began to rise. He sat there watching the stars prick the sky, his jaw clenched, his mind turning. He didn't know yet what it would cost to protect her, but he knew one thing. He would not let her vanish like her family wanted. She was his responsibility now, and somewhere in the dark, unseen eyes might already be watching. The night was quiet, broken only by the distant hum of harvesters still working in the far fields. Aaron sat on the cold ground with Lyra resting against his side. She had cried herself to sleep, her small body wrapped in his jacket. Her breaths were soft, shallow, as if even in sleep she feared the world might turn on her again. Aaron kept watch, his eyes scanning the horizon. His mind replayed the moment he had pulled her from the blades. Again and again, every time his chest tightened, the thought of arriving a second too late haunted him. He rubbed a hand across his face and sighed. He knew he needed answers. He needed to understand what kind of people would abandon their own child like that. When the first pale light of dawn touched the sky, Lyra stirred, her eyes blinked open slowly, filled with a dull heaviness. For a moment she looked confused, as if she had forgotten where she was. Then her gaze fell on Aaron and her body tensed. But when she saw he had not left, her shoulders eased a little. "You're still here," she whispered. Her voice was so small it nearly vanished in the morning breeze. Aaron gave her a tired but steady smile. "I told you I won't leave you," he said. She lowered her head, clutching the jacket closer. After a long silence, Aaron spoke again. "Lyra, I need to know, why would they leave you out there?" His voice was careful, gentle. She flinched, hugging her knees tighter. He thought she might stay silent, but then she whispered, "Because I am weak." The words struck Aaron hard. He shook his head. "That's not true," but she continued, her voice breaking. "My family said I slowed them down, that I couldn't work fast, couldn't carry enough, they said. I ate more than I gave back." Her lips trembled. "So they said I wasn't worth keeping." Aaron felt fire rise in his chest, his fists curled tight. "They said you weren't worth keeping," he repeated, anger burning in his voice. Lyra nodded, fresh tears sliding down her cheeks. "They said the harvesters take the weak and no one cares. It's easier that way." Her words cracked. "They said it was better for everyone else if I was gone." Aaron's heart ached. He wanted to tell her it was a lie, that her family was cruel and heartless, but he could see how deeply their words had carved into her. She believed it. She had been taught to believe she was nothing. He reached out carefully and wiped a tear from her cheek. "Listen to me, Lyra," he said firmly. "You are not weak, you are not worthless, and you will never be nothing while I'm around." Her eyes searched his face. Doubt still heavy inside her, she whispered, "But why? Why would you care? You don't even know me." Aaron took a slow breath. "Because sometimes strangers see what family refuses to see," he said. "And I see someone who deserves to live, someone who deserves to be safe." His voice was steady, carrying a weight she could feel. Her lips parted as though she wanted to speak, but the words never came. Instead, she simply leaned against him, small and trembling, but not alone for the first time. She told him more. Her family had been struggling. Food was scarce. Work was endless. The colony leaders demanded more every season. Her father had said keeping her alive was a burden they could no longer carry. Her mother had not argued. Her brothers had laughed when they pushed her toward the field. She had begged, but no one listened. Aaron's jaw tightened, his stomach turned. He had seen hardship, yes, but nothing justified throwing a child to the blades. He wanted to march into that settlement and shout the truth until every face turned in shame. But he knew it would not be so simple. Some aliens truly believed sacrifice was necessary. Some had convinced themselves that abandoning the weak was survival. "Lyra," Aaron said softly, "what they did to you was wrong. I don't care what excuse they gave, it was wrong." She sniffed, her small hands clinging to the jacket. "But if they see me alive, they'll be angry," she whispered. "They'll say you should have let me die." Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let them be angry," he said. "Their cruelty doesn't decide your worth, you hear me?" She looked up at him, eyes glistening. He nodded firmly. "You are alive because you deserve to be. Not because of them. Not because of luck, because you fought to survive. And because I won't let you go." She held his gaze for a long time. Then, for the first time since he found her, a small faint smile touched her lips. It was fragile, like it might break at any second. But it was there. Aaron felt something shift inside him, a determination harder than steel. He knew then that he was bound to her, not by blood, but by choice. The sun rose higher, painting the fields in gold. The harvesters continued their endless work, cold and unfeeling. But between them sat a human and an abandoned girl, carving a fragile bond stronger than the cruelty that tried to erase her. Far in the distance, unseen by either of them, figures moved at the edge of the settlement. Lyra's family had noticed something they did not expect. The girl they thought gone forever was alive, and she was not alone. The settlement was built from stone and metal, walls patched with rusted plates and beams. Smoke drifted from chimneys, filling the air with the bitter smell of oil and fire. It was not a place of comfort, but of survival. Every face was hard, every voice sharp. People worked until their hands cracked. And kindness was a rare thing. When Aaron entered with Lyra at his side, eyes turned. Some slowed their steps, others stopped completely. The sight of the human with the abandoned girl was like a spark thrown into dry grass. Whispers spread quickly, carried on the wind. "Is that the weak one?" A woman muttered, staring with narrowed eyes. "Didn't her family leave her?" Another hissed, "Then why is she still alive?" Aaron kept walking, his steps steady, but he felt the weight of every gaze. Lyra stayed close, clutching his jacket sleeve. Her eyes darted nervously. She could hear the words, every cruel whisper slicing into her like a blade. "They should have let the harvesters take her," an older man spat. "That is how it has always been. Why interfere?" Aaron stopped then. His eyes swept the crowd. "Because no child should be left to die," he said. His voice was calm but strong. The whispers fell into silence for a moment. Faces hardened, but some turned away. Unwilling to meet his gaze, Lyra shrank closer to him. Her small hand gripping his tighter, she whispered softly, "They hate me." Her voice trembled. Aaron bent slightly so only she could hear. "No, Lyra, they hate what I did, but that does not matter. You are not alone anymore." But the crowd was not finished. A tall alien man stepped forward, his face marked with scars. "Human," he said coldly, "you do not understand our ways. Weakness spreads like a sickness. One life can doom many. That girl was left behind because it was necessary." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Necessary?" he repeated, his voice sharp. "You call it necessary to throw away a child?" The man sneered. "Better one child than a whole family starving. You think your compassion feeds mouths? You think it makes us stronger?" Aaron felt the tension rising, but he refused to step back. "Compassion is what makes us more than machines," he said firmly. "Without it, we are no better than the harvesters themselves." "Mindless and cruel," the crowd murmured again, divided. Some shook their heads, muttering that the human was foolish. Others frowned, their expressions uncertain. For many, the girl's wide eyes and trembling hands stirred something they did not want to admit. Lyra pressed against Aaron's side, her small body shaking. She whispered, "Please, let's go. They will never understand." Aaron glanced at her, then at the people watching. He wanted to fight every one of them, but he knew this was not the time. He guided her forward, moving past the whispers. As they walked, the whispers followed. "He will regret this," one voice said. "The leaders will not allow it," another muttered. "He thinks he can change the old ways?" "He is a fool." Aaron ignored them. But inside his chest a storm brewed. He had saved her life. But now he realized the greater battle was not against machines. It was against a tradition built on cruelty. He led Lyra to the small shelter he used near the edge of the colony. It was little more than a shack of metal sheets and wood, but it was safe inside. He set down a blanket on a cot and motioned for her to sit. She obeyed quietly, curling up as though trying to make herself invisible. Aaron knelt in front of her. "I know their words hurt," he said gently. "But you must remember they are wrong. They are afraid. Afraid of change, afraid of compassion. But that doesn't mean we stop showing it." Her eyes filled with tears. "But what if they take me back? What if they hurt you for helping me?" Aaron shook his head. "Then they will have to go through me first." His voice carried no fear, only steady determination. Lyra stared at him, her lips trembling. Finally, she whispered, "Why do you fight for me?" Aaron smiled faintly. "Because I see someone worth fighting for." Outside, footsteps passed, voices murmured. Some had followed him here, curious, whispering about the human who defied their customs. "He protects her like she matters," one scoffed. He thinks he can save her from the law, another said. The words carried through the thin walls, and Lyra flinched, pressing her hands to her ears. Aaron's eyes darkened. He stood and stepped outside, meeting the small group gathered near his shelter. You can whisper all you want, he said, but I will not let you harm her. The group fell silent under his gaze, their eyes burned with disapproval. But none spoke further. They drifted away, leaving only their whispers behind. Aaron returned inside, closing the door. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. They will not stop, she whispered. Aaron sat beside her, placing a hand over hers. Maybe not, he said, but I will not stop either. For the first time, Lyra let out a weak laugh, short and fragile. You are strange. Human, she said. Her voice carried a flicker of warmth. Aaron chuckled softly. Maybe, he admitted, but strange is sometimes what the world needs. That night, as the wind howled outside the shack, Lyra lay curled on the cot, her breathing slow. Her small body finally at rest, Aaron sat near the door, keeping watch. He knew the settlement would not let this pass, but he also knew he would never back down. And in the silence of the dark, the whispers grew louder, spreading through the colony like fire. The human had broken their law. The human had defied their way. Soon judgment would come. The days that followed were uneasy. The settlement had grown colder toward Aaron, not because of the weather, but because of the whispers. Everywhere he went, eyes followed. Some were filled with anger, some with fear, and a few with quiet doubt. Lyra stayed close by his side. Her small steps quick to keep up, Aaron did his best to keep life steady. He worked the fields, repaired broken tools, and traded when he could. But every time he appeared, voices rose in hushed tones. That girl should not be here, someone muttered. The human will bring trouble on all of us, another hissed. Lyra felt the weight of those words. She kept her head low, her hands clutching his sleeve whenever they walked. At night she would whisper, "Why do they hate me so much?" Aaron would answer the same, "Because they are afraid of change. Not because of you." Still, he saw how deeply it hurt her one evening. As the sun sank low and shadows stretched long, a group of figures appeared near Aaron's small shelter. Lyra's heart froze when she recognized them. Her family, her father stood at the front, tall, broad-shouldered, his face hard as stone. Her mother trailed behind, her eyes sharp. Her brothers smirked cruelly. Aaron stepped outside when he heard the footsteps. His eyes narrowed. He had expected this moment. "Though not so soon, you came back," he said evenly. Her father's voice was cold. "She was meant for the harvesters. That is the way of things. You should not have interfered." Lyra pressed against the doorframe, her small hands trembling. "Father," she whispered, but his gaze cut through her like she was not even his blood. Her mother's lips twisted. "You shame us, girl. You should have accepted your fate." Aaron felt his chest burn with anger. He stepped forward, standing between Lyra and her family. "You abandoned her to die," he said firmly. "And now you come to claim her again? You have no right." The father's eyes narrowed. "She is ours, human. You think your pity makes her your child? She belongs to her bloodline, not to you." Lyra's brothers laughed, one sneering, "Weak blood is no blood. We don't want her, we only want her gone, and if you keep her, you defy our law." Aaron's fist tightened, his voice came low and sharp. "Then your law is wrong." The words struck the air like a spark. The brothers' laughter faded into anger. The father's jaw tightened. The mother hissed, "You dare challenge the ways that kept us alive?" The sound of gathering footsteps grew. Neighbors had begun to circle. Drawn by the confrontation, whispers filled the air. "It is the girl's family," someone muttered. "They want her back," another whispered. "Or dead." Aaron glanced at the crowd, then back to the family. "You left her. You gave up your claim when you turned your back," he said. "She stays with me." The father's voice grew louder, echoing through the crowd. "You speak like you are one of us, but you are not human. You do not understand what sacrifice means. One weak life can drain the strong. That girl is nothing." Lyra's breath caught. The words sliced her open again. She wanted to scream, to beg, but fear crushed her voice. She clung tighter to Aaron's sleeve. Aaron turned so the crowd could hear him. His voice rang with fire. "Nothing?" he repeated. "You call a child nothing? She is alive, she breathes, she feels, she dreams. And you would throw her away because it is easier than caring. That does not make you strong, that makes you cowards." Gasps rose in the crowd. Some muttered angrily, others fell silent. A few lowered their eyes, uncertain. The father stepped forward, fury in his face. Do not speak to us of cowardice, human. You know nothing of our struggle. Aaron did not flinch. I know enough, he said. I know that the measure of a people is not in how they treat the strong, but in how they protect the weak. For a moment, silence hung heavy. The crowd shifted uneasily, divided between anger and doubt. Lyra's eyes filled with tears as she stared up at Aaron. His words wrapped around her like a shield. Her father growled, If you keep her, you set yourself against us all. His voice was a threat. His brothers cracked their knuckles. Ready for a fight, her mother's gaze was like ice. Aaron straightened, his eyes unwavering. Then so be it, he said. His words carried like steel. The crowd erupted with murmurs. Some shouted that the human was reckless. Others whispered that maybe he was right. Lyra's heart pounded. She had never seen anyone stand for her like this. Her family's faces twisted with rage, but for the first time, she felt the strength of someone choosing her, truly choosing her. The father spat on the ground. This is not finished, he growled. He turned sharply, motioning for his family to follow. They left, their eyes burning with anger. Their threat hung heavy in the air. As the crowd began to disperse, whispers spread like fire. The human has challenged the law. He has taken the abandoned girl. There will be judgment soon. Aaron stood still, his breath steady but his heart heavy. He knew this was only the beginning. Lyra stepped out from behind him, her small voice breaking the silence. You stayed, she whispered. He looked down at her, his face softening. I told you I won't leave you. The night crept in. Heavy with tension, the settlement was no longer just watching. It was waiting, a storm was building, and Aaron knew he would have to stand against it. Not just for himself, but for the little girl who clung to hope in his shadow. The settlement square was alive with noise. A crowd gathered as the leaders called for order. Their voices echoed from the stone walls. The news had spread too quickly. Aaron, the human, had kept the abandoned girl alive. He had refused her family. He had spoken against the law. Lyra stood close to him, her small hand gripping his tightly. Her wide eyes darted nervously from face to face. The people of the colony circled them like wolves, some muttering, some glaring, others whispering with unease. The leaders stood on the raised platform, their cloaks marked with symbols of authority. The eldest leader, a gray-skinned alien with sharp eyes, lifted his hand. Silence rolled across the square. You stand accused, human, he said coldly. You have broken the ways that kept this colony alive for generations. You saved what was meant to be sacrificed. You challenged our law. Aaron's voice cut through the silence, strong and steady. I did what was right. A ripple moved through the crowd. Murmurs rising, the elder's eyes narrowed. Right? Our law is survival. We abandon the weak so the strong may live. That girl was nothing but a weight. Her family made the choice. And you defied it. Aaron stepped forward, his voice louder now. You call her a weight. You call her nothing, but I call her a child. And no child should be left to die at the blades of a machine. Gasps broke from the crowd. Some shook their heads, others frowned. Lyra pressed closer against him, her heart pounding. She had never heard anyone speak like this. Not against the leaders. Not against the law, the elder sneered. You are not one of us, human. You do not understand sacrifice. Without it, none of us would be here today. Weakness spreads like disease. If one child cannot carry her share, then others suffer. That is truth, Aaron's voice rang clear. No, that is fear disguised as truth. You have built your strength on cruelty. You have told yourselves the weak must fall so you can rise, but I tell you this. A people who abandon their children are already weak, the crowd stirred. Divided, some muttered angrily. Others looked down at the ground. A mother in the crowd clutched her own child tighter, her eyes filled with doubt. Another leader stepped forward, his voice sharp. And what would you have us do, human? Feed every useless mouth? Carry every burden until we starve? You speak with heart, but heart does not fill bellies. Aaron lifted his chin, his voice fierce. Heart is what keeps you from becoming machines. Machines cut, harvest, destroy without care. But you are not machines. You are living, thinking people. If you throw away compassion, then you are no different from the harvesters you fear. Lyra's chest rose with a shaky breath. Her eyes shimmered with tears. She had always believed she was nothing, but his words gave her something new. Worth. The elder slammed his staff against the platform. Enough, he barked. Your words are dangerous. Human, you would undo the very foundation of our survival. If others follow you, we risk collapse. Aaron took another step forward, his voice unwavering. Then maybe your foundation is broken. Maybe survival is not worth the cost if it means children must die unseen. You fear collapse, but you should fear the silence of your own hearts. A hush fell, heavy and sharp. The leaders' faces darkened. The crowd was restless, torn between fear of change and the sting of truth. Some whispered, "He is right." Others hissed, "He is a fool." Lyra's family pushed forward, her father's voice loud. "This is madness. He has poisoned your minds. She is weak, worthless. She should have been taken. Human pity blinds you. Do not let him deceive you." Aaron's eyes burned as he looked at the man. "You left her to die," he said, his voice carrying across the square. "You had no mercy, no love, and now you call me blind? No, I see more clearly than you ever will." Her father snarled, but before he could reply, Aaron turned back to the leaders and the people, his voice rose like thunder. "I am human, and where I come from, we protect our children. We fight for them, even when it costs us everything. That is why we endure. That is why we grow stronger, not by discarding life, but by guarding it." The words struck deep. Lyra's small hand trembled in his, but her eyes shone with light. For the first time, she saw the crowd not as enemies, but as listeners. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others glanced at their children, guilt flickering across their faces. The elder's jaw clenched. His staff shook in his grip. "You dare stand against us?" he demanded. Aaron met his gaze without flinching. "Yes," he said. "For her, I will stand against all of you." The crowd erupted, some shouting in anger, others in awe. The square filled with noise, the air thick with conflict. Lyra clung to Aaron, her heart racing. In that moment, she knew he was no longer just her rescuer. He was her shield, her voice, her defiance against a world that tried to erase her. As the leaders tried to calm the crowd, the harvesters rumbled in the distance, their blades slicing through crops with cold indifference. Aaron's words echoed louder than the machines, a challenge that could not be silenced. And though the judgment of the colony had not yet fallen, one truth was clear. The human had made his stand, and nothing would ever be the same again. The colony square eventually grew quiet. The leaders had spoken their judgment, but their words did not have the same weight as before. The people had heard Aaron's voice, and something inside them had shifted. Some still clung to the old ways, but many looked uneasy, uncertain if cruelty was truly the only path to survival. Aaron led Lyra back to his small shelter at the edge of the settlement. She walked beside him, her small hand holding tightly to his. Her eyes were tired, but inside them flickered a light that had never been there before, a fragile hope. That night, as the wind whispered through the gaps in the metal walls, Aaron sat by the dim lantern while Lyra lay curled beneath a blanket. He watched her breathing slowly, even though he knew her sleep was not deep. She often woke from dreams, shaking and crying, haunted by the memory of blades and abandonment. But each time Aaron was there, whispering softly, reminding her that she was safe. Days turned into weeks. Life did not grow easier, but it grew different. Aaron continued to work, trading labor for supplies, fixing what others had broken. The whispers still followed him, but now they were mixed. Some muttered that he was dangerous. Others wondered if he was right. A few even offered quiet nods when they passed, small signs that their hearts were not as hardened as their words. Lyra grew stronger, her cheeks no longer hollow, her steps no longer so slow. She laughed sometimes, soft and brief, but real. Aaron taught her small things, how to tie knots, how to use tools, how to listen for the sound of water underground. She listened carefully, eager to learn, her tiny hands often clumsy, but her determination bright. One morning, she surprised him. She had taken a broken bucket and fixed its handle with a strip of metal and wire. She held it up proudly, her eyes shining. "Look, Aaron," she said. Her voice was still soft, but it carried joy. Aaron smiled, ruffling her hair. "You did well, Lyra," he said. She glowed at his words, warmth filling her chest. Her family never came again. Their silence was heavy, but Aaron was grateful for it. He knew their hatred still lingered, but he also knew Lyra no longer looked for them in the crowd. She no longer asked why they had abandoned her. Instead, she looked only to him. One evening, as the stars stretched across the dark sky, Lyra sat beside Aaron outside the shack. The air was cool, the fields quiet. She leaned against his side and whispered, "Aaron, am I really worth all this trouble?" Aaron turned to her, his expression firm but gentle. "You are worth more than trouble, Lyra. You are worth life, worth love, worth every breath I take to protect you." His words made her throat tighten. Tears filled her eyes, not of pain, but of something new, something she had never felt before. She whispered, "Then, can I call you family?" Aaron's chest tightened. He placed a hand on her small shoulder, his voice low and steady. "You already are." Her tears spilled, but she smiled through them. The word family no longer felt like a wound. It felt like healing. As weeks passed, others began to notice. Some children followed Lyra when she fetched water. Curious at first, their parents pulled them away, afraid of what it meant to stand near the abandoned one. But slowly, little by little, those walls began to crack. They saw her smile, her determination, the way she worked beside Aaron, and they wondered. A mother once approached Aaron quietly, handing him a loaf of bread. "For the girl," she whispered before hurrying away. Aaron watched Lyra's eyes widen as she held the bread in her small hands. It was the first kindness she had received from anyone besides him. She broke it in half and handed a piece back to him, her voice shy but firm. "Family shares," she said. The harvesters continued their endless march across the fields, their blades cold and merciless. But Lyra no longer saw them as the end. She saw them as proof of how close she had come to death and how far she had risen since then. One night Aaron took her hand and led her to the edge of the field. The stars shimmered above. "Look, Lyra," he said. "Do you see those lights? Each one is a world, a place with people who once thought survival meant cruelty but learned different. Humanity has walked that path too. We made mistakes, but we also learned that protecting each other makes us stronger, not weaker." Lyra stared at the stars, her eyes wide. For the first time, she did not feel small. She felt connected, part of something greater. She whispered, "Then maybe one day our people can learn too." Aaron nodded. "They will, because of you," he said. She blinked, startled. "Me?" He smiled. "You are proof that compassion changes everything. You are living proof that the weak are never truly weak when someone stands for them." Her heart swelled. She leaned into him, whispering softly, "Thank you, Aaron." The colony would not change overnight, but change had begun, whispered in secret, carried in the eyes of children who saw hope instead of shame, carried in the hearts of parents who doubted for the first time if their law was just. And at the center of it all stood a human and the girl he saved, bound not by blood but by choice. Together they had defied the blades, the whispers, the judgment, and together they walked into a future where kindness, not cruelty, could guide survival. The harvester's roar faded into the distance, replaced by the steady beat of two hearts. For Lyra, the abandoned girl, and Aaron, the human who noticed her, a new family had been born, and with it, a new future.